I spent years trying to be the perfect professional, calm, polite, reliable. The moment I finally stopped acting that way, something broke. And that's when I started breathing again. I was 23 when my boss told me, "You are a real professional, Noah. You handle pressure like a machine." He meant it as a compliment. I nodded, smiled, thanked him. But I remember exactly what I was feeling that day. My jaw hurt from clenching, and my stomach was tight from the coffee I had been using instead of lunch. I had not slept more than 4 hours in 3 days. But I smiled. That was the job. Back then, I thought being professional meant hiding everything. Your stress, your opinions, your needs. You were not supposed to get flustered. You were supposed to be polite, steady, composed. Even if someone was yelling at you across a conference table or giving you a deadline that would take a miracle to meet. I got good at it. Real good. I could take criticism without flinching. Nod along while someone insulted me in a calm voice. Stay quiet while others took credit for my work. I became the guy they could throw anything at. Noah will handle it. And I did. At meetings, I would rehearse neutral expressions in my head before walking in. If someone interrupted me, I smiled and let them finish. If someone lied about me, I let it pass. Do not make it worse, I would tell myself. Do not give them a reason to see you as emotional. And it worked. I climbed the ladder. People saw me as reliable, someone they could trust with high-stakes situations. They praised how level-headed I was, even in chaos. But here is what no one tells you. Professionalism, when you take it too far, turns into self-erasure. I stopped being a person and became a performance. Someone who absorbed tension instead of releasing it. Someone who never snapped, never cried, never said, "That is not okay." I started to notice it outside of work too. At family dinners, I would zone out instead of defending myself. In relationships, I apologized more than I needed to. I swallowed frustration so well, I forgot what it even felt like to let it out. The weird part, people liked me more for it. But I was not sure I liked myself anymore. One time, I was sitting in a Zoom meeting with a VP who had just casually told me to redo a full week's worth of work because priorities shifted. I said, "No problem," and jotted down notes like a robot. But underneath my desk, my leg was shaking like a jackhammer. And later that night, I laid awake wondering why I felt so hollow. That was the beginning of the crack. Just a hairline fracture. I still thought I could hold everything together. I had no idea how deep that crack would go, and I had no idea what it would cost me. I used to think emotional control was my superpower. Like if I could stay calm while someone else lost it, that meant I won. I learned that early. First from my dad, who yelled like it was sport. Then from teachers who liked kids better when they were quiet. I figured out that the less space I took up, the safer I felt. So, at work, I became the guy who never pushed back. One time, a client sent me a furious email at 1 in the morning. I had forgotten to copy someone on a thread. That was it. A missing name. But he wrote 5 paragraphs about how unacceptable it was, how I lacked urgency, and how he expected better. I saw the email at 6:17 a.m. I skipped breakfast and wrote an apology so polished it could have won awards. I promised it would never happen again, CC'd his whole team, and closed with, "Thank you for your feedback." Then I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, feeling like I had swallowed cement. But everyone said I handled it well. Grace under pressure, they called it. Inside, I felt like I was vanishing. Slowly. You want to hear something stupid? My Fitbit started giving me stress alerts while I was sitting still. It thought I was sprinting. That is how good I got at looking calm while my body was screaming. My girlfriend at the time, Lauren, used to ask me why I always looked tired. "You never complain," she said once. "But you always look like you are trying not to break." I laughed it off. Told her work was just busy. She nodded, but I could tell she did not buy it. Eventually, she stopped asking. That is the thing about acting fine all the time. People believe you, even when they should not. And then came the restructure. 2 departments were merging. Everyone was tense. There were rumors about layoffs, reassignments, the usual whisper campaigns. I was managing a team by then. 5 people who looked to me for direction, for stability, for answers I did not have. My manager, Carol, pulled me into a meeting late Friday. She said, "Noah, we need you to absorb the product team for now. Just keep them steady while we figure things out. It is temporary." Temporary meant no raise, no extra help, and double the workload. Just for a little while. Just until the dust settled. And of course, I said yes. Because I was the professional. Because I always said yes. I left the building that night in the dark, the city buzzing like static in my ears. I walked past a guy arguing on his phone, past a food truck with music blaring, past a couple laughing about something that probably did not matter. And right there on the sidewalk, I realized something. I did not feel anything. Not tired. Not angry. Not scared. Just gone. Like I had become the glass wall in a fancy office, clear, solid, and invisible. But the glass was starting to crack. And the next hit was coming sooner than I thought. The thing about burnout is that it does not hit like a heart attack. It creeps in. At first, I just stopped feeling excited about things. Stuff I used to care about. Music, basketball, weekend hikes. Just felt like noise. Then I started forgetting stuff. Little things. Where I parked. What day it was. Once I left my laptop at home and didn't notice until someone asked for a file. I laughed it off. Made a joke about needing more coffee. Inside, I was scared. Sleep did not help. I would go to bed exhausted, wake up with my jaw sore from grinding my teeth. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that things would settle down once the merger was over, once I trained the new people, once I cleared out my inbox. But that once kept moving. The new team had no idea what they were doing, and they were looking to me like I was supposed to be the lighthouse in a storm. So I played the part. I stayed late, smiled through meetings, sent polite follow-ups, smoothed over chaos. I even started coaching a junior manager who was supposed to be helping me, but somehow I ended up doing her job too. People kept thanking me. You are a rock, Noah. We are lucky to have you. And I kept thinking, if I am a rock, why do I feel like I am crumbling? It got so bad that I started planning my bathroom breaks. Not because I was too busy, but because the bathroom was the only place I could sit in silence, close my eyes, and just be no one. I remember one Friday, I was in the break room, microwaving leftover pasta I was too tired to reheat the night before. This new guy, Will, was talking about his weekend plans, some music festival he was going to with his girlfriend. He asked me what I was doing. I said, nothing much. But what I wanted to say was, I am probably going to lie on my floor and try not to cry. I said nothing. And then the twist came, subtle, quiet, but sharp. My body started fighting back. I was walking up the stairs to my apartment when everything tilted sideways. My heart started racing. My legs felt weak. I grabbed the railing and just stood there, frozen. It passed after a minute. But the next morning, it happened again. I went to the doctor. They ran tests, checked my heart, checked my blood. Everything came back normal. The doctor leaned back in his chair and said the words I was not ready to hear. Honestly, Noah, it sounds like stress. You ever consider seeing someone about that? I nodded, said I would think about it. But I did not. Because in my head, that felt like admitting defeat. I told myself I could handle it. That I just needed a little more time. Just one more week. One more project. One more push. But something was shifting. Not because I wanted it to. Because I was running out of gas. And next time, I might not make it up the stairs. The moment I cracked, it was nothing dramatic. No yelling. No flipping tables. No dramatic exit. It happened in a Tuesday meeting. The same meeting we had every week. Same faces. Same talking points. Same tired cycle of vague compliments and impossible deadlines. I was sitting there, watching Carol talk about streamlining expectations, which was her way of saying we needed to do twice as much work with fewer people. Everyone was nodding along, smiling, pretending like this was all fine. And I was doing it too, nodding, smiling, until someone said, Noah, can you take the lead on this new rollout? We know you are great under pressure. That line, that one damn line. I opened my mouth to say of course, but nothing came out. Everyone looked at me, and I just sat there. The silence stretched a little too long. People started shifting in their seats. I felt heat rise in my neck. My heart thudded in my chest, loud and heavy like a warning drum. I took a breath, forced a smile, and said, Can I be honest? They blinked. A few people smiled like I had just made a joke. But I kept going. I am not okay. I do not have the bandwidth. I have not had it for a while. No anger in my voice. Just calm. Flat. Honest. The room went silent again, different this time. Not the awkward kind. The unsettled kind. The kind that makes people look at each other and wonder if they missed something. Carol cleared her throat. Noah, if you are overwhelmed, we can regroup offline. I am not overwhelmed, I said. I am burned out. A few people looked down at their laptops. I had been running on fumes, saying yes to everything, smiling through disrespect, doing the work of 3 people, and nobody noticed. Or maybe you did. Maybe you just got used to it. That last line came out sharper than I intended, but it was true. No one spoke. And you know what I felt? Not shame, not panic, relief, like I had finally stopped holding my breath. After the meeting, Carol pulled me aside. She asked if I needed time off. She said they could maybe shuffle some projects. She looked confused, maybe a little scared, but the one thing she did not look was angry. That surprised me. Later, I got a Slack message from one of the new hires, Jamie. Just said, "Thanks for saying what some of us have been thinking." And that hit me harder than I expected. Because for the first time in years, I realized I was not alone. And that maybe, just maybe, being human did not mean being weak. The day after the meeting, I expected fallout. Maybe a call from HR. Maybe a one-on-one with Carol where she would explain how I needed to manage perception or protect my brand. Maybe just cold shoulders in the break room. That silent kind of punishment people hand out when you break the script. But none of that came. Instead, something stranger happened. People started opening up. Quietly. Privately. One guy from the data team stopped me by the elevators and said, "Honestly, I have not slept through the night in 6 months." A woman from marketing told me she cried in her car 3 times last week and thought she was just being too sensitive. Even Jamie, new, bright-eyed, still trying to prove herself, confessed she had started taking anxiety meds just to get through back-to-back Zooms without her chest locking up. I listened, nodded, said thank you. It was weird, like breaking my silence had given other people permission to break theirs. But not everyone liked it. By Thursday, Carol started using phrases like maintain morale and protect the tone of leadership. She pulled me into a room and said, "You are highly respected, Noah, but your visibility means people take cues from you. We just need to be careful not to normalize negativity." I almost laughed. Instead, I asked her, "Do you think it is negative to tell the truth?" She stared at me for a beat, then said, "It depends on how it is framed." That right there, that line, felt like a mirror cracking, because that was the exact mindset I had lived in for years. Everything had to be framed, filtered, sanded down until it was smooth enough to swallow. But I was tired of being palatable. I wanted to be real. So I told her something I had never said out loud to a boss before. I am not trying to be a mascot anymore. I am a human being. If that makes people uncomfortable, they should ask why. She blinked fast, like she was buffering. Then she nodded, said she understood. But I could tell she did not. Still, something shifted in me that day, because I walked out of that room without second-guessing myself. No panic, no spiral, no imaginary apology email drafted in my head. And that night, for the first time in months, I slept. Not for long, but long enough to dream. In the dream, I was standing at a podium, giving a presentation. But instead of numbers on the screen, it was just my face. Over and over. Like someone had taken every version of me, smiling, tired, angry, quiet, and put them on display. And I was not hiding from any of them. When I woke up, I could still feel it in my chest. That mix of fear and freedom, like I had just stepped off a ledge. And for once, I was not falling. I was landing. You ever feel the room shift when you walk in? That next Monday, I stepped into the office and I felt it. Subtle but real. Less eye contact. Fewer Slack pings. People I used to chat with at lunch suddenly had meetings. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Paranoia, maybe. But by Wednesday, it was obvious. Something had changed. Carol stopped inviting me to planning calls I used to lead. The new rollout, the one I said no to, was handed to someone else. No explanation. No heads up. Just reassigned. And I could feel people watching me. Not out of admiration this time. More like curiosity. Like they were waiting to see what I would do next. Then came the twist. That Friday, I got a message from someone I had not spoken to in years, my older brother, Adam. We were not close. We grew up in the same house, but lived 2 completely different lives. He was always the golden boy, varsity athlete, class president, smooth talker. Our parents called him the achiever. I was the quiet one. He worked in finance now. Big firm, big paycheck, big image. The message just said, "Saw something about you. Thought we should talk." I did not know what that meant until he sent me the link. It was a blog post, anonymous, written by someone inside my company, titled, "The Rise and Stall of a Burned Out Hero." It was about me. They did not use my name, but it was obvious. Described a mid-level manager who broke professionalism for personal release. Accused me of planting seeds of discontent and destabilizing morale with emotional vulnerability disguised as leadership. I read it 3 times. Each time, it hit harder. I had not spoken out to be noble. I just cracked. I had told the truth. And now, someone had turned that into a warning story. Adam's follow-up message said, "You need to be smarter than that, especially in companies like this." That was rich, coming from a guy who once ghosted his fiancée 2 weeks before the wedding. But still, it stung. And yet, I was not angry. I was tired. Not the kind of tired you sleep off. The kind that lives in your bones. The kind that tells you, something has to change, or this will never end. I closed my laptop, turned off my phone, and I sat there, in silence. No email, no performance, no filter. And in that silence, I heard something I had not heard in years. My own voice. Not the one I used in meetings. Not the one I used with Lauren. Not the one I rehearsed in my head. Just mine. Quiet. Calm. Real. And I realized I had a choice to make. The next week, I stopped pretending. Not in a dramatic way. I did not slam doors or write a manifesto. I just started saying what I actually meant. If I did not have capacity for a task, I said it. I cannot take that on right now. If someone talked over me in meetings, I would pause and say, I will continue once I have the floor. If someone gave vague feedback, I would respond, I need something clearer to act on. And when Carol asked me to pitch in on something small, I replied, it might be small to you, but it is big on my already full plate. No anger, no sarcasm, just the truth. And people noticed. Some were unsettled. You could see it in their faces, the little flinch when I did not soften my tone or wrap everything in pleasantries. Others looked relieved. I got a message from Jamie. You sound different. Like yourself. But the tension started building fast. HR called me in for a temperature check. Said they had received mixed feedback about my recent communication style. I asked if anything I said had been false, unprofessional, or abusive. They said no. Just less filtered than usual. I said, so the problem is not what I said. It is how comfortable I am saying it. That shut the room down real quick. Afterward, I went out for coffee. Not because I needed caffeine. I just needed air. As I waited in line, I looked around the cafe. People hunched over laptops, talking quietly, phones in hand. Everyone wired in, tuned out, trying to keep it together. And I realized, so many of us are just walking performances. Playing roles we never auditioned for. Carrying pressure we never questioned. Smiling through stuff we should be naming out loud. I got my coffee and sat by the window. No laptop. No phone. Just a notebook. And a pen. I wrote one sentence. Professionalism is not the opposite of humanity. And then I wrote it again. And again. Until it stopped feeling like an idea and started feeling like a vow. When I came back to the office, I was not different on the outside. Same clothes. Same schedule. But something had shifted inside. The armor I used to wear? It was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I was not afraid of being seen. Carol stopped talking to me. Not completely. Not officially. But the tone changed. Shorter messages. No check-ins. Dead silence in meetings unless I spoke first. And then I found out through a team-wide calendar invite that she had assigned my mentorship duties to someone else. No explanation. Just gone. I stared at the screen for a full minute, waiting for the anger. But it never came. Just a quiet ache. The kind you feel when someone you used to trust closes the door without slamming it. And then came the real blow. I was pulled from a project I had built from the ground up. One I had pitched, led, shaped. It was the only thing keeping me tethered to that place. No reason given. Just a cold note from a senior director. We're going in a different direction. Thanks for your contributions. Contributions. Like I had donated blood. I sat at my desk and stared at the empty Google Doc where the next project plan was supposed to go. Nothing came. No fire. No fight. Just this heavy, strange calm. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and left early. No one stopped me. No one asked where I was going. Outside, the air hit cold and sharp. Winter had finally arrived. The kind that bites your skin and clears your head. I walked without a destination. Past a bookstore. A grocery store. A group of kids yelling about something pointless and joyful. And then I passed Lauren. My ex. She was standing at a crosswalk, earbuds in, bundled up, scrolling her phone. We had not spoken in nearly a year. She looked up and saw me. There was that second, one heartbeat, where everything paused. Not because there was anything to fix between us, but because for the first time, I felt like I could actually see her. Not through the lens of guilt or what if. Just as a person. She smiled. Small. Hesitant. Then gave a quick wave. I waved back. We did not speak. But for some reason, that silent moment stuck with me all night. Because it reminded me of something I had forgotten. I do not owe anyone a performance. Not even the people I once loved. I owe myself peace. And maybe that peace starts with this. Letting go of the things that punish me for being honest. I did not quit in a blaze of glory. No dramatic all-hands announcement. No carefully crafted goodbye email filled with coded jabs and fake gratitude. I just walked into Carol's office on a Wednesday morning, handed her a one-page letter, and said, "This is my notice." She blinked. "Noah, wait, can we talk about this?" I shook my head. I am not angry. I am just done. That was it. I packed my things quietly. A few pens. A mug someone gave me 2 years ago. A notepad filled with thoughts I never shared. People watched me the way you watch someone walking into the ocean, like they were not sure if I was drowning or finally learning how to float. Jamie stopped by my desk. She looked pale, like someone had told her bad news at the wrong time. "You okay?" she asked. For the first time in a while, I said, "Yeah." She nodded. You gave a lot of people here permission to be human." That stuck with me. Because I never meant to lead anyone. I was just trying not to disappear. I rode the elevator down alone. Stepped out into the lobby like I had 100 times before. But this time, I did not feel small. I felt clean, like I had been carrying something invisible for years, and finally set it down. Outside, the wind hit cold across my face, and I let it. No coat. No rush. Just air. Just breath. I did not have a plan. No new job. No side hustle lined up. Just some savings and a calendar wide open for the first time in over a decade. And somehow, that did not scare me. I walked 3 blocks to the coffee shop. The same one from before. Same corner window. Same chip table by the outlet. I opened my notebook. Wrote one word. Begin. And for the first time in years, I did not feel tired. I felt free. 2 weeks after I left the company, I had a dream. I was back in that conference room. The same sterile walls, same hum of the AC, same long table lined with laptops and bottled water. Only this time, I was not sitting at the table. I was standing behind the glass wall, watching my old self. He looked sharp, polished, calm, the guy they called reliable. But something about him looked wrong. His hands were clenched tight in his lap. His shoulders were too stiff. He smiled, but it was not real. It was rehearsed. He looked like he was trying so hard not to be a problem. He had forgotten how to be a person. I woke up gasping, not from fear, from the realization that I had been holding my breath for years. Professionalism, the way I had lived it, was never about dignity or pride. It was about control. It was about shrinking myself to fit a system that only rewarded silence. It took me far. Promotions, trust, influence. But it took something else too. It took my voice. It took my joy. It took the simple right to say, "I cannot do this today." And what finally broke me was not rage or rebellion. It was exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that does not ask permission. That just stops you mid-sentence one day and whispers, "Enough." That was the day I learned. Armor keeps you safe, but it also keeps you isolated. It dulls pain, but it dulls everything else too. I still carry that notebook with me. The one I wrote begin in. Now, it is filled with messy thoughts, ideas, half-sentences, anger, hope, real stuff. Stuff I never made room for before. I have not figured out what comes next. But here's what I know. I no longer apologize for needing rest. I no longer nod when I mean no. I no longer perform calm while unraveling inside. And strangely enough, people still respect me. Some even more than before. The ones who don't, they were never really seeing me in the first place. They were watching a version of me that no longer exists. Now, I get up in the morning, pour my coffee, and breathe. Not brace. Not clench. Not rehearse. Just breathe. And if that means I am no longer the most professional guy in the room, good. Because now, I am finally the most myself.